than the people in this room. It might be the Navy. It might be their expansion plans and what they're doing and the change in platforms. I had the privilege just 2 weeks ago to spend a couple days down here with the Marines in Camp Pendleton and the leadership of the Navy on the base, and I was really awestruck in what they're doing and the transition from sort of a one-size-fits-all platform to these modular platforms. The net of it all, what I took away is it means really good things for this economy, and it means the naval presence is going to endure forever in San Diego, which is really good. But there's no better organization I can think of to tell that story and share it, not just with San Diegans, Californians, the nation of the world, than the people in this room. As we speak directly to those communities of interest, print, digitally, through events, podcast, TV, whatever the form factor looks like, we could go first to them. We can share it in this real-time archive called the website, and the next day archive called the print newspaper. And now we found a different avenue. And I'll give you one small example we're doing in Los Angeles, which I think speaks to how we can start to actually get paid for doing so, and therefore both survive and prosper. So we relaunched our California efforts. When I joined the LA Times, they were all commingled in a section called Late Extra. Late Extra meant a lot to those who worked in the printing plant because it was the last section printed. Therefore, it became a grab bag of a little bit of local, breaking news from the White House and something that might have happened on the other side of the world. And as a customer, it was awful hard to find consistently what you're looking for. So we said, first and foremost, we have to own the conversation about where we live. Let's relaunch our efforts. Now let's learn something from what's happening in this digital world. Well, we broke down reader behavior, and I use reader, to me that connotes more engagement than a viewer or something else like that. So reader could be video, audio, or text. But our reader engagement wound up striking in how we learned some things. If the x-axis or the data we had was 100 words at the low end, so a very short story, what happened? 1,000 words plus, a long explainer on why it happened. It could be a set of graphs and charts, it could be a longer video. We had terrific engagement. 100 words, tell me what happened. 1,000 words plus, tell me why it happened. In the middle was almost a dead zone. Those 500 to 700 word stories, neither fish nor fowl, not much engagement. Now, why do we have all the 500 or 700 word stories? Well, it turns out that 5 of them fit pretty neatly on a printed page. But that's not what the customer sees. The customer sees what happened, but they want to know why it happened. So we relaunched our coverage. Reader engagement up 20% since we've done it. Journalists have found better ways, new ways to express themselves in the 1,000 word plus arena. They've been retrained to say, if we're just saying what happened, just say it succinctly and move on. Don't burn more calories than you need to. Reader engagement up 20%. We back that up with a way to communicate to that community of interest who just want a taste of California. We launched a newsletter. Every morning, if you wish, you can become a subscriber. We now have about 75,000 in the 3 or 4 months since we've launched it. You'll get a taste of California. The top stories of the day, and not just our California section. It might be sports, it might be politics, it might be something else relevant to Californians. And not just in our own voice. So we archive, we curate 2/3 of the stories, half the stories in any given day are in the voice of the LA Times. The rest are what our editors think are the best of stories about California. Might have been some from the Union Tribune, I'm sure, at some point along the way. The further good news, we bring sponsored content and advertisers to those newsletters. Might not be advertisers who want to buy a page of ROP, might not be advertisers who want to buy impressions on the website, but they're really interested in talking directly to that community of interest, engaged Californians who view first and foremost their identity as California. You know, we won't become a company of newsletters, but I use this simple example as where we all need to get and why this combination will better support that. Your coverage of the Navy, our coverage of the Dodgers together, nobody else can do those sorts of things. Now this is the first in a series of steps. Let me give you a sense of where we are. Today, we've signed an agreement to combine forces. The actual transaction won't close plus or minus for another month. Until then, you'll see a bunch of me and some of my colleagues. But Jeff and Mr. Manchester and that team, it's theirs, it's not ours. So there will be a period of uncertainty here where you'll have a bunch of questions that we can't yet answer with clarity. I apologize in advance for that. That's just how these things work. You do have my commitment as soon as possible after we have closed, after the two businesses reside in the same company, we'll answer as many of those questions as we can, try to alleviate some of the uncertainties, put people to work collaboratively, and build a big future on it. Just to take you back to where I started, this is a big day. It's a big day for me because I'm a huge believer in news and information. I'm sort of a junkie. I start my day today, 5 newspapers, tomorrow will be 6. That's why I got down here, so I started at 5. I have 4 kids. Interesting, when I started at the LA Times, my youngest, my daughter who's 12, she's always been a newspaper reader. So we sit and look at the papers. She has 3 older brothers, each of whom heretofore have spent their mornings spilling the cereal on the paper, but they've actually, a pleasant surprise to me, I took 2 of my kids, my middle son and my daughter, we have a test kitchen. And they saw how all the recipes that wind up in the newspaper are actually tested and cooked and so on. And my middle son, out of the blue, said, "Listen, is this where they tested the homemade sriracha recipe?" How cool is that? He didn't acknowledge to me that I'd even taken the job, let alone that he looked at the newspaper. And here we were talking about homemade sriracha recipes in the LA Times. So there is hope. We're finding different ways to connect to that future, whether it's Essential California, the daily newsletter, or something else we've launched called HS Insider. One of the things that struck me was we aren't making the effort to connect to that next generation of people who want to be informed about where they live and what's going on in the world. So we launched something called HS Insiders, short for High School Insider. And in a perfect world, of the 750 high schools in the Los Angeles area, we would send a reporter out to cover all of them. There'd be a lot of reporters. There'd be a lot of pages we'd have to use or buy to chronicle that journey. So we've turned it on its head and we said, well, what if we work with the journalists who already reside there, the high school reporters and their mentors at the high school paper, and bring them in collaboration, create a platform where they can tell their stories. So we've signed up 100 some odd high schools, 150,000 kids in those high schools, telling the story of their journey. We started with sports, that was kind of the easy way in, high school sports. They're now telling stories about the not-for-profit they work at. The concert, there's a partnership we have with Ryan Seacrest and I think it's Kiss FM, I can't remember the radio station, where he's picked 2, and those 2 are chronicling their journey at Wango Tango, and he's putting them on the air. I don't know, Johanna's in the room next week, so listen. So it's kind of cool stuff, and we're getting engagement, we're finding ways to engage that next generation, and we want to try some of those ideas and new ideas down here to do so. But the big news, in this combination, the shared strength will help us survive and ultimately prosper. Prosper means we remain that civic conscience in Los Angeles, and we remain that civic conscience in San Diego, and respect the differences. Authentic, trusted source of news and information about the communities in which we live and the world around us. Prosperity when we find new tools, new ways to engage not just the future generation, but the right set of tools and technologies to do so. And prosperity when we continue to deliver each and every day on the doorsteps of customers like me, a printed newspaper who want to see when they get up in the morning. So it's really my privilege to share just a few words. And what I'd like to do, turn this into a conversation. I'd be delighted to answer some questions, talk a little bit about this. I know some of you are surprised, some of you aren't. This being the news business, we got scooped. But at the beginning of the conversation, I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. And I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you. Sure.